So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's teleconference. My name is Elise Jones, and on behalf of the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities, I would like to personally thank all of the HBCU faculty and students who we have joined with us today. Another special thanks to Celisa Rollins and her colleagues at the Bonneville Power Administration for being with us today and bringing awareness to the opportunities in their agency. For those of you that don't know, the Bonneville Power Administration is a self-funding agency under the U.S. Department of Energy that markets federal power in the North Pacific region. Today's presentation and panel discussion is designed to give our HBCU career services, current students, and recent graduates insight into BPA and the many opportunities that their student internships and pathways programs offer. Before we get into the presentation and discussion, I do have a few housekeeping announcements. If you have not done so already, please mute your phones while the presentation and panel discussion are taking place. As a reminder, a copy of the presentation and recording will be made available to attendees following this discussion. Please feel free to utilize the chat function throughout the presentation and discussion. We will have, throughout the presentation and discussion, we will address all comments and questions during the designated question and answer portion following this presentation. Finally, and most importantly, do not be discouraged or intimidated by the federal government titles or opportunities that are presented to you today. This presentation is for everyone, all majors and classifications of students, and you may be pleasantly surprised at the places that you can fit into. Remember to pay attention, ask questions, and engage with our speakers, and that this is a unique opportunity to gain more insight of the many opportunities available to you, and I encourage you all to take advantage of it. So at this time, I will now pass it over to Celisa Rollins. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. My name is Celisa Rollins, and I'm a general engineer working in BPA's Regional Coordination and Long-Term Planning Group under Power Services. I am also a member and vice president of BPA's African American Resource Group.
And I am Ayo Idowu, a supervisory electronics engineer under BPA's Transmission Services, specifically in the Communications and Control Planning Group. I am also an African American Resource Group member.
So our goal today is for you to walk away with an understanding of what BPA does and gain a perspective on energy careers within the federal government, in particular, opportunities in the Pacific Northwest. Here's the agenda of what we will be covering in today's presentation. We'll start off with an overview of BPA and highlight upcoming student opportunities for fiscal year 2021. Thereafter, we'll transition to our panel discussion. Today, we have an amazing panel of professionals, both supervisors, Jamae and Jerry, and current employees, Martine and Liz, that went through BPA's internship programs. Following the panel discussion, we'll open the floor for Q&A session. Now, I'm going to hand it over to Ayo to talk about the business of BPA and what this agency is all about.
Thank you, Celisa, for the introduction. By the show of hands, I'm sure most of you have heard about the Department of Energy, and instantly you think of Washington, D.C., right? As a federal agency, the DOE has many functions and objectives and is the parent agency for various offices throughout the country. What some people may not know is that DOE operates 4 regional power marketing administrations, or PMAs, which are created by statute. Those PMAs include Bonneville Power Administration, Southeastern Power Administration, Southwestern Power Administration, and the Western Area Power Administration. As shown on the map, each PMA operates in a distinct geographical area. I apologize, my cat in here. In general, the PMAs came into existence because of the government's need to dispose of electrical power produced by the dams. These dams were mainly constructed for irrigation, flood control, or other purposes at the time to achieve small communities and farm electrification. With minor exceptions, these agencies market the electrical power produced by the federal dams, which are constructed, owned, and operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation. Now that you're familiar with BPA's geographical location, here's a short promotional video to give you an idea of how BPA brings value to the Northwest.
Northwest is a proud region. We're proud of our clean land, our clean air, our clean water, and our clean power. At BPA, we're proud of the role we play in all those things. We're a public resource working for the public good. As a not-for-profit, we take pride in providing the highest value energy at the lowest possible cost, supporting the Northwest economy and way of life. From water drop to energy watt, our electricity superhighways bring the power of the river to your door. Evolving, advancing, modernizing to better serve the region, while taking seriously our commitment to the environment. Like a trusted friend, we can be counted on to brighten your day or help you weather the darkest night. We're the perfect partner to other renewables like wind and solar, stepping in to quite literally share the load. We're not just part of the region's rich history, we're critical to its clean energy future. At BPA, we do more than just keep the lights on. We balance the grid so they never go out.
As the video mentioned, we're a non-profit and self-funded federal agency. BPA was created by Congress over 83 years ago to deliver and sell power from Bonneville Dam. The four key areas of focus for BPA are power and transmission services, energy efficiency, and environmental fish and wildlife. Under the Power Services Organization, we market wholesale electrical power from 31 hydroelectric dams along the Columbia River, one federal nuclear plant, and several small non-federal power plants. One interesting fact is that these dams in the Northwest produce more electricity than any other North American river system. And the majority of that hydropower is delivered from the federal Columbia River Power System, which is a collaborative operation between BPA, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. This system delivers at cost power to public preference customers across the Northwest. In summary, our agency plays a role in providing low-cost electricity in the region. Transmission services is also a key part of the agency's operations. BPA operates and owns one of the nation's largest transmission systems, which contains more than 15,000 miles of high voltage lines, enough to stretch over halfway around the Earth. This equates to about 3/4 of the high voltage transmission in BPA's service territory, which includes Idaho, Oregon, Washington, western Montana, and small parts of eastern Montana, California, Nevada, Utah, and Wyoming. BPA provides transmission to public and private utilities in our region and directly serves large-scale industry operations, such as military bases, aluminum plants, and chemical manufacturers. In addition to power and transmission services, promoting energy efficiency to the residential, commercial, industrial, federal, and agricultural sectors is also critical to the mission of BPA. Not only does the agency seek to deliver power at the best value, but it strives to do so while mitigating the impacts on the environment. Fish and wildlife protection, mitigation, and enhancement are fundamental to BPA's public service mission. Under the 1980 Northwest Power Act, BPA mitigates the effects of the federal hydro system on fish and wildlife in the Columbia River Basin. The goal here is to provide equitable treatment with power generation and other
It's on.
while also
You want to listen to it?
with federal mental law.
Dr. Peters called
You
me
owns
about
up.
Dr. Flemings.
Who is Flemings?
The one who donated money to us.
Oh.
And good, I did email her, the young lady.
Mm-hmm.
But
If you
Dr. Peters
that would be great.
called Dr. Peters, and she had
Dr. Barnes, could you please mute your phone?
Thank you. To give you an idea of how much BPA invests in fish and wildlife, the diagram shows every dollar in power revenue, which is 17 cents, goes to this area. Since 1978, BPA has committed nearly $17.7 billion to support Northwest fish and wildlife recovery. In addition to monetary commitments, our agency partners with other federal entities, states, tribes, and conservation organizations to enhance habitat, improve hatchery practices, and protect lands and streams. Now that you have some background on the various organizations at BPA, I'll hand it over to Salisa to talk about upcoming internship and pathways opportunities.
Thank you, Ayo, for that introduction on the business of BPA. Let's direct the presentation to highlighting upcoming pathways opportunities for fiscal year 2021. So if you navigate to the student internship section of the BPA website, this will give you a high-level overview on our Pathways internship program. The program recruits a wide variety of positions, and these job opportunities open up throughout the school year. This site also gives information on the certain benefits interns are eligible for based on the type of appointment and the length of time. Another important thing to note about BPA's Pathways program is the conversion rate from intern to full-time employee is high. So in summary, the opportunities at BPA, they offer a career path, growth, and the agency has many locations throughout the region. Here's a list of positions that BPA will be posting this year under the Power Service Internship Program and the Transmission Student Development Internship Program. The engineering positions listed are pretty straightforward. However, other positions such as Operations Research Analyst or Public Utility Specialist are interdisciplinary and can be open to multiple majors. On this slide, we posted a OPM's handbook for occupational groups. And in this document, it lists and defines each occupational group and series in the classification system. Also, please be mindful that each posting on USA Jobs will specify what is required. Therefore, you need to review the announcement details and determine if you meet the eligibility requirements listed. Unless it says you need a specific degree requirement or other requirements, you will not need a specific degree. Just refer to the job announcement since there are usually many ways an applicant can meet eligibility and qualifications. So how do you apply? The job opportunity announcements or JOAs for these programs are expected to open on USA Jobs between December 7th and 14th and close between January 4th and 10th. If you have a profile on USA Jobs or intend to create one, we highly recommend you set up notifications for future job announcements. Some jobs, they can be posted and then quickly close, meaning the time to apply is short-lived. So if you have a search and set up email notifications, you'll have a better chance of knowing when new jobs are posted. Once you identify a position you're interested in, you'll need a USA Jobs profile, federal resume, transcripts, and other application components to apply. Just review the JOA in detail and see what other materials are required. One other major tip that we have when building a federal resume is there's no page limit. As some of you know, a federal resume requires more information than a private sector resume. Therefore, there is typically no limit to the number of pages. Also, try to relate your work experience to the knowledge, skills, and abilities and keywords in the JOA. Don't be vague. Provide concrete statements of your accomplishments in the correct tense for past or present positions. It's also important to note that the HR specialist can't make any assumptions or draw conclusions about what you did or did not do. So spell out exactly what your experience is so that it's clear. Another piece of advice is do not wait till the last minute. Start the application in the first days of the JOA opening. For more tips on the application process, we suggest that you go to the USA Jobs website. So now to the panel discussion. Our panel will be asked questions that draw out some high-level themes and trends. Thereafter, we'll open up the floor to give the audience an opportunity to ask specific questions. So let's start off with introductions from the panel. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at BPA, and the most exciting thing you've been a part of here.
Hi, thank you, Salisa. I'm Jamae Hilliard-Creasy, and I'm happy to be talking with you all today. I joined Bonneville in 2003, and since then I've held positions in transmission, corporate, and power services. Currently, I'm the manager of power scheduling coordination, and I'm responsible for establishing, implementing, and accounting for energy schedules and transmission arrangements, which move power from Bonneville's electric grid to our customers. Since being at BPA, I would say there are many exciting initiatives that I've been a part of. One of special note would be being on the team to help form the Columbia River Fish and Wildlife Accords with treaty tribes within our service territory. These agreements were really foundational to providing direct funding to tribes to develop and implement fish and wildlife projects. With that, I'll turn it over to Jerry.
Thank you, Jamae. My name's Jerry Jackson. I am a proud 2003 graduate of North Carolina A&T State University. I'm a Portland native, and I'm an electrical engineer at BPA, where I currently serve as a supervisory electrical engineer for the transmission operations planning division. One of the most exciting things that I would say that I participated in operations is we're responsible for making sure that the system is in a safe and reliable state for all conditions. This summer on the West Coast, we experienced a heat wave that went up and down the coast, and we also had one of the worst fire seasons on record. And one of the things that I'm most excited and proud about is that my group was responsible for making sure that the system was operating in a safe and reliable manner, not only for our region, but also for California, our friends down south that were experiencing a power shortage. So being involved with that and being able to have an immediate impact on the system is something that I was very excited about, and also something I was very proud about. I'll turn it over to Liz or Martin.
Hi, thanks, Jerry. My name's Martine. I started at Bonneville Power here in 2016. I came in through the student internship program we have here through the pathways, and I can attest the conversion rate is pretty high. I graduated from Oregon State in 2019. Had my last finals on Friday, 7 a.m. and that following Monday at 8 a.m. I had moved from Corvallis back up to Portland, and I was in the office that Monday morning. So it was pretty easy on the conversion side of it. So once I got hired on as right now when I'm working as a project engineer, more specifically on the transmission line side of engineering. And as a project engineer, my responsibilities are to lead the design team and make sure we get the design package ready for the construction crew, whether it be our internal construction field workers or if we contract it out. And the most exciting thing I've been a part of is being part of developing our corrosion mitigation program. It's something that's up and coming that we've seen isolated corrosion on some of our steel structures, and it's becoming to be, a bigger problem. And I was lucky enough to shortly after I got hired on in 2019 as full time to be part of this team that's brainstorming how we're going to deal with the corrosion at a bigger picture and make sure we're handling for years to come. And I'll pass it over to Liz.
Thanks. So good morning. My name is Liz Oberhausen, and I am currently a recent graduate in the Pathways program of Power Services. So what I do here so far is constantly changing. I studied natural resource policy and administration and collaborative governance as focuses of a master's in public administration, which I completed before starting my position here. I'm really interested in how different levels of government and the public, tribes, and nonprofits work together to provide public goods, solve public problems, and balance different needs. So BPA was interesting to me in a lot of different ways. I was interested in BPA's energy efficiency work and how BPA balances the needs of fish, power, and flood control, and how each of those impact our operations. So I've been at BPA for 7 months now, and I'm in the middle of my second rotation. So I'm still pretty new, but learning a lot. The most exciting thing I've gotten to be a part of so far was a project in my first rotation. My first 4-month rotation was in energy efficiency with our residential programs team, learning about how our low-income and tribal low-income grant programs work. So as part of that rotation, I got to write a guide to our low-income programming and how utilities, tribes, and nonprofits can work together to optimize their weatherization and other energy efficiency services throughout BPA service territory. The project I worked on involved working with our Tribal Affairs Office, energy efficiency representatives, and sitting in on meetings with our low-income work group to better understand the perspectives of different stakeholders, which is exactly the kind of work I'd hoped to do with my degree. So it was exciting for me.
All right, thanks everyone for those introductions. We'll move on to the next question. So what drew you to BPA and how did you end up applying? I'll pass it on to Jamae to start off this question.
Great, thank you. So what drew me to BPA was the diversity of job opportunities. And I ended up applying for Bonneville because somebody had heard about my work that I had done at the city of Portland for local government and encouraged me to apply. Had they not done that, I probably would not be working for Bonneville now. Jerry?
Thanks, Jamae. What drew me to BPA? So I started working at BPA as a student intern my junior year at A&T, and my mom had passed and I wanted to come back to the Portland metro area where I'm from, all my family's from. So Bonneville's always been known as a great place to work, and so I applied for the internship, and that led to a full-time career that I'll talk a little bit about later. But basically it was me wanting to come back home to the Northwest and also to use my electrical engineering degree right away, which I was able to do. So turn it over to Martine.
They say it's important to know people, and in this case, it was my good high school friend. He went into college and started working for Bonneville Power about 4 years before I did. And, I would have never thought. He knew I was pursuing a degree for civil engineering, and I would have never guessed Bonneville Power had opportunities for me. But he told me one day that he noticed a job opportunity and that they had internships. So that was the first I heard of it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And so that's what drew me to it and caught the attention. And then what I really liked was that it was a local internship with the opportunity for full-time employment. And I had served in the military and traveled around the world a little bit, and it made me realize that I wanted to be home. So the locality of Bonneville Power, and being part of the community here. Obviously they're distributing the power. They're the ones that make the lights go on, as like we like to say, was something that I really liked, and I thought that's what drew me here and why I applied. On to you, Liz.
Yeah, so I took an energy course as part of my master's program that included a number of people who were there for professional development from BPA. And I just noticed as I talked to them that they seemed really happy with their work and their jobs and overall really passionate about what they did. So I just kind of kept that in mind. And as part of that class, I also got to hear the BPA administrator speak, which I was really inspired by. And I knew from the course that the work that BPA does is really diverse with a broad variety of opportunities available. So towards the end of my master's degree, a mentor of mine mentioned the recent graduates program and told me to kind of keep that in mind because you're eligible the first couple of years after you graduate. I looked up USA Jobs and saw that BPA had a number of different positions open, including the position of a public utility specialist. I took a whole day and very thoroughly followed the application instructions on USA Jobs. Definitely a bit time consuming, but USA Jobs walks you through each step one at a time, and it was definitely very worthwhile.
Awesome. So this leads us to the next question for Liz and Martine. If you can think back to the moment when you were applying, what distinguished BPA from other internship programs or other job opportunities that you were considering at that time? So I'll hand it over to Martine to start off with answering this question.
So that brings me back to, if my friend would have never told me about the opportunity, I probably wouldn't have applied. This was during my sophomore year, and I wasn't really focused on internships. School was pretty challenging, and I was focused on graduating over anything, and that was my main priority. But once the opportunity presented itself, it was convenient that it was during winter break, and I had extra time. I don't know if you noticed in the previous slides, the openings for transmission engineering come out early December and close right around early January, and that coincided with my winter break. So that was helpful, and gave me the time, and I wasn't focused on doing any assignments or distracted with finals, because like Liz was saying, the application through USA Jobs is a little vigorous. Definitely took my time. I knew I was putting all my eggs in one basket since I wasn't applying for other internships at that moment. But like I said before, the locality was something that interested me, and also obviously being a federal position, you hear about the great benefits and the work-life balance, and it paid off for me in the end, because I definitely enjoy working for BPA. Liz?
Yeah, so one thing that attracted me to BPA, like I mentioned, was the variety of work that we do. I have a wide variety of interests and don't like to just do the same thing all the time. So I felt like I would never get bored at BPA. There's so many different types of work to do and explore. I was also excited about the design of the program itself and some of the perks, including 40 hours of training that the Power Services does called Power Up Academy, which covers the breadth of BPA's operations and gives you kind of a big picture understanding of what goes on in the agency and exposes you to other opportunities within BPA. All recent graduates and interns are also assigned a mentor who's not from their work group to orient them to BPA and just be a resource and check in throughout your program. And then lastly, I think unique among programs that I was looking at the time is that you're paid at whatever level you're qualified for under the GS qualification system. So being paid immediately for having a master's or having a bachelor's, whatever level people are at, rather than a number of internships, which are fairly low paying or underpaid, felt really good and felt like it was immediately using my degree.
Thank you, Liz and Martine. This next question is for Jerry, who is a graduate of an HBCU. Can you talk about your experience working for BPA while attending North Carolina A&T State University?
Sure. Sure. As I said before, I'm a Portland native, born and raised in the Northwest. So attending North Carolina A&T State University was a culture shock, but it was a decision that I was happy that I made, and I would do it again if I had the opportunity. Loved my time at A&T. Prior to starting at Bonneville, I had did 2 internships prior to. One was at Tektronix here locally in the Portland metro area, and the other one was at Visteon, which is in Dearborn, Michigan, in the automotive industry. And one of the first things that I noticed when I started my internship at BPA my junior year was I felt like I was immediately part of a family. I received a mentor, I received training and exposure to the energy industry. I realized what I was studying at A&T was directly applicable to the work environment, and I felt definitely like I was prepared. Going across the country, BPA at the time, the student program was able to provide me with tuition assistance and assistance with my travel back and forth, which was definitely something that was a blessing to me during the situation where my mom had passed my junior year. So Bonneville definitely has been like a family to me from the beginning. And I felt like my experience at A&T at a HBCU definitely prepared me for the workforce and to be able to come in right away and receive employment. So I thought it was definitely a good balance, and BPA definitely has been good to me and has definitely provided many opportunities while I was at A&T.
All right, thank you, Jerry. One important thing to note is that when you intern at BPA, you have the opportunity to gain exposure to different business functions of the agency through rotations. So the next question is for Liz and Martine. If you can talk about your experience during rotations through the power and transmission internship programs. Also, please share what is your favorite part about working at BPA?
Okay, so I guess I'll start off with my favorite part of working at Bonneville Power Administration in the transmission engineering is the luxury we get to go on site visits when we're looking at new projects. So it's nice to get out of the office. You know, I appreciate being able to, you know, my work-life balance. You work in the office so you can get home on a decent time and have your own personal life. But then at the same time, it's nice to have that time outside of the office, and you get to see things that help you in your work, and BPA does a great job of facilitating opportunities for you to, you get one of the vehicles. They're all terrain because some of our sites are kind of out there up in the woods, and you need four-wheel drive, as well as some of our sites. I've been all the way out to Montana and Spokane, Washington. So one day I took a commercial flight, and they offer this and they'll pay for it to go on a site visit for 3 hours. So it was a one-day trip. I was back the same day and I was all the way out in Spokane. So that's something I really appreciate about Bonneville, giving us that opportunity. And then during my rotation is when I did a lot of my field visits. So even as an intern, they gave me the freedom and luxury to experience all the great, Pacific Northwest. And I got the luxury of working with 3 groups since I started my internship early in my college uh, education. I worked in the civil design group that focuses on the access roads. So they lay down and construct a lot of our accesses that are off the public access that lead you to our structures, as well as the construction management group that runs and facilitates the construction. During that time, we had a few facilities being built over at our Ross complex. So it was nice to see a project of that scale and see the behind the scenes of the daily tasks and activities that happen, and high pressure, because that's all happening day to day versus the work I do now that is more design, that's looking behind, and we're not on the schedule day by day. And then structural engineering, I was there for one summer to get to see the more subject matter experts and I got to work with Leon Kepner, which is our leading structural engineer here at Bonneville Power. And that was exciting to work with everyone at BPA in the different organizations. And I think I would highlight that everyone here at BPA is very friendly. And that was the experience I really enjoyed. Is I was able to ask all the questions I wanted, and every time I changed from a new group, everyone was very welcoming, and they gave me work to do, and they also helped me, guided me during that whole time. So it was a great experience. Gave me the flexibility, but at the same time, they were there to answer any questions when I had them. Pass it over to Liz. Liz, I think you're on.
Liz, I believe you're muted.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my rotations so far have been really interesting and fun. They're very catered towards each person's skills and interests. There's not just a cookie cutter of rotations. My intern manager really took the time to get to know me, my background and experience, and made sure that my skills and experience could provide a contribution. After my initial rotation in energy efficiency, one of the things that I realized was that I could really use the chance to apply some of what I'd learned in school about data analytics. I had done some coursework, but never used it in a job setting, and felt like strengthening that skill while I was still an intern could help me wherever I go in BPA. So I asked for an intern rotation that would help me practice more of the data analysis and where I could still add value for my group. So that led to my current rotation in Power Account Services, where I get to work with our meter data and look at questions like what the impacts would be of a customer utility bringing on new renewable resources into their system, and what we would need to charge the customer to provide power when that resource isn't generating. So I also get to help with our rates and contract work. My last rotation will be in our midterm planning group, putting together a reference for our chum operations. So that's how we manage our operations to make sure that chum salmon are able to reproduce successfully. I'm really excited to dive deeper into our hydro operations, fish requirements, and how we plan to balance the two. I think that better understanding these elements will help me in any collaborative work that I do with external stakeholders. Salmon health is really important in the region. As far as my favorite thing about working for BPA, I think that a big thing has been that you can tell that BPA wants to make sure that your needs are met in all areas and really cares deeply about work-life balance. BPA has these seven leadership behaviors that it promotes in everything we do, and the first one is the value of people. Before BPA, I'd never worked anywhere that hoped to keep you for the rest of your career and really work to make sure that you see a future for yourself and chances to advance, develop skills, and do work that's interesting to you. As part of my recent graduate program, my intern manager has helped me put together an individual development plan, so laying out my short and long-term goals and what trainings, activities, and other development activities it would take to get me there, and I've already gotten to do a few of those things. So overall, in every rotation and each person I've interacted with, it feels like people are really invested in helping interns be successful and find the right place for ourselves within BPA, and that feels really unique and special.
All right, thank you, Liz and Martine. So another important thing to note is that BPA is a dynamic federal agency. After coming on board through the internship programs, your exposure to different areas of business doesn't stop there. You can do a detail, which is the opportunity to be temporarily assigned to another work group. This lets you test drive other positions you might be interested in within the agency. So this next question is for Jamae and Jerry. Can you talk about your career trajectory? Also, if you've done details, how have they helped build your skill set? So Jamae, you can start.
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you. So I started my career in Bonneville in the business transmission line. So in that group, I joined the political strategy and public affairs team. And I worked on expansion of high voltage transmission lines within Bonneville service territory. So in that role, I led communication planning and public processes to raise awareness about the project and also to create opportunities for agencies, tribes, homeowners, interested stakeholders to provide input on the line's routes and proposed mitigation actions. Then from that job, I detailed into a position in tribal affairs, and I led government-to-government negotiations between Bonneville and the tribes on hydro operations and fish and wildlife mitigation actions needed to meet biological opinions and Endangered Species Act requirements. From there, I moved on to Environment, Fish and Wildlife, and I was the Policy and Planning Division Manager. And essentially in that role, I worked on determining policy and program goals for mitigating hydro operations, which includes hatchery management actions, habitat investments, research and monitoring and evaluation activities. So that's a mouthful, but I will say that each detail provided me the opportunity to grow and learn. So I developed my facilitation skills. Negotiation was one of the things that I really wanted to hone in on, that aspect of the work, and I was able to do that throughout these details. And I also learned to communicate with a variety of internal and external stakeholders, including executives with multiple federal agencies. So all of these experiences, I feel, really position me for career advancement within the agency. And I learned and did things, frankly, I would have never done and never thought that I was qualified to do. So those experiences, those details really helped round my skill sets. Jerry, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jemaine. So when I first started as a student intern, I did 2 summers and 2 winter break stints in the System Protection and Controls group. And essentially, it's a combination of field and office work. The primary goal for us was to do fault detections and to do system repairs on our substation equipment in the field. So immediately I had an opportunity to travel and see BPA's system, substation to substation, which definitely put the intellectual part, the book part, into application directly and seeing the equipment in the field. When I graduated in 2003, I was immediately converted to a full-time position with BPA, where I worked in the transmission operations planning group, where I still work in. So I started as a student study engineer, where we studied the system, and essentially the goal of that group is to provide support for the system. It's basically like air traffic control for the transmission grid. So I started as a study engineer, where I worked on pretty much most of the different parts of BPA system that spread across the entire Northwest. And I worked my way up as a team lead. And then in the last 5 years, I've served as a supervisor for the group. And prior to being a supervisor, I did do a detail into our transmission planning organization, which essentially does what we do in operations, except instead of looking at 6 months all the way through real time, transmission planning looks at 2 years out to 15 years. So I was able to gain some perspective on the building and the implementation parts that go into figuring out how we meet our load and demand from a long-term perspective, which definitely gave me perspective for the transmission operations organization. During this time, I've also had several opportunities to be involved in different leadership organizations, both internally and externally to Bonneville. So I feel like pretty much if you want to do something different, you have that opportunity. If you want to create a development plan, you have the support to do that. And if you would like exposure outside of the agency, there are several opportunities for you to do that as well.
All right, thank you, Jemaine and Jerry. For those of you that are tuning in today, I'm sure you're wondering why BPA? So Jemaine and Jerry, can you please share with the audience why should job seekers consider a career with BPA? I'll hand it over to Jemaine.
Yeah, so I would say, just even listening to the panel members, the diversity of work that Bonneville is involved in. If you like to do different things, if you are somebody who wants to grow and learn, that Bonneville is an exciting place to be. The energy industry is evolving rapidly, and so being part of that industry also offers, in my view, lots of opportunity, and it's pretty exciting to me. I mean, what I'm most excited about really is being able to find better ways to meet customer needs and serve the region. And I'm also really passionate and excited about bringing in new talent to the agency. Jerry?
So I would say why you should consider working at BPA, especially if some of you are outside of the region. BPA is part of the federal workforce. We fit underneath the Department of Energy. So since 2003, I have had 0 gaps in employment. There's been at least 2 recessions since then. There's been different political regimes that have come in and out. And BPA has definitely provided a sustainable, consistent source of income. If you're looking to get rich quick, BPA is probably not the place for you to go. But if you're looking for a sustainable, consistent, reliable place to work that promotes you in your career, this is definitely a place to work. And we've heard several different stories from the panel about the different experiences that you have. And so even if you're looking to do something different, many times in some companies, you have to go to a different company to get that experience. Well, you can be an engineer and then work in finance. You can work in fish and wildlife. You could work in the business department. You can work in the rates department. So there's several opportunities for you to change your career, even if you are a particular major. And then also I would say one of the things that I've liked about working for Bonneville is the culture here. We're a nonprofit, we're a public servant. So the decisions that we make are based on what's in the best interest for our customers. I've never felt like I've had to make a decision that was unethical or was unright. All the decisions that we've made are in the best interest of our customers from a public service standpoint. And that lines up with my personal morale and beliefs of doing things the right way. So if you're looking for a culture that's supportive, that wants to serve the region that it's in, BPA is definitely a place for you to consider for employment.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that, you know, Bonneville has and will continue to need employees with diverse educational backgrounds. So that includes engineering, as you know, Jerry's an engineer, but mathematics, biological sciences, communication, history, human resources, political science, economics, the list goes on. I have staff that have degrees from a variety of those specialties, and we need, you know, folks think a lot of times of energy and they think of engineers and maybe folks in finance, and they forget that there's this whole realm of educational backgrounds that we need in the agency. So keep that in mind as you're considering Bonneville.
Great, thank you, Jermaine and Jerry. This next question is for Jermaine and Jerry. So as the panel pretty much alluded to, there's a lot of different career opportunities in the energy industry. So if you can share what excites you the most about the future of the energy industry. And I'll hand it off to Jermaine.
Yeah, and I alluded to this earlier, but energy industry is evolving. And so there's lots of opportunities to be creative, to think of new ways to serve our customers, as Jerry mentioned. Also, you know, in the Northwest, we're fortunate to have an abundant hydropower. So a clean, reliable, renewable resource, which we carefully manage to match supply and demand. And that's pretty exciting. Not every part of the country has what we have. And so part of what excites me is just carrying on the legacy of, you know, caring for and being a steward of the federal Columbia River power system. Jerry?
Yeah, I would say when I first started at BPA, and even when I was back at A&T, there was other parts of electrical engineering that were more exciting. A lot of people were looking at computer programming and microprocessor design, working for companies like Intel that were on the cutting edge. The power system was considered to be something that was old and boring. There's only so many different ways you can design a transmission tower. There's only so many ways you can transmit electricity. But I would say right now, there's so much excitement in the industry, in the power system industry, looking at the reduction of CO2 emissions, clean energy, the electrification of the transportation industry. If you're looking at some of the renewable portfolio standards that California has right now, battery storage, solar, wind, those are things that you wouldn't see on TV, but are currently being talked about by multiple industries. And being part of the power industry right now is very exciting. There's so many different opportunities for you to explore and to go into. And then also, I would say from a human capital standpoint, many people are retiring. The baby boom generation is leaving at a very fast rate. So starting your career, I would say, especially at Bonneville, you never have the concern of not receiving information. So many people who have been in the industry for 30 plus years, their goal and their passion is providing information and knowledge transfer. So I would say from an industry standpoint, there's so much change and innovation in the industry, and there's also a great opportunity to learn and also to grow and develop your career as well.
Great. So for the final question, this is a question for everyone. What advice would you give your college self if you were watching this presentation? And I'll hand it over to Liz.
Yeah, so one of the best pieces of advice I got in college was actually from my dad, and I was taking a look at an opportunity to spend a summer abroad at the time, but was really wavering on whether it was worth applying. I didn't think I would get chosen, and he said that the first round of eliminations are the people who don't apply because they don't think they're qualified or don't think that they have a chance to get selected in a particular opportunity. And I never thought about it that way before. And so I went ahead and applied, and I got that opportunity. And I've applied for a lot of things that felt like a reach for me at the time, and gotten them based on that advice. So I'd pass that on to anyone else too, that it just doesn't hurt to apply, and you can open yourself up to some really interesting opportunities. Oh, sorry. I'll pass it off to Martine.
Oh, thank you, Liz. I guess I would stress what I heard a lot as a college or high schooler is the importance of internships and applying for them. Obviously, I told you that I was a little behind the curve, but knowing what I know now, I definitely would have done, as Liz said, is just apply to all the internships I was interested in, whether I felt like I was fully qualified or not. I'll probably share that story as well, or that advice of, you're eliminated yourself already just by not applying. That's a good one. And then I would just say you'd be surprised of the value you learn from an internship, both what the work will actually be like, and also what you learn about yourself. Coming from a military background and then working from Bonneville Power, I definitely appreciate the work-life balance here at Bonneville Power. I think that's more suited for me. The military was a little more structured and I would say somewhat micromanaged. So that works for some, but for me, the environment here at BPA, being able to do things at my pace and meet the schedule as, schedule that on my own is something I can really appreciate. And I wouldn't have known that if I never took that internship, how much I value the work-life balance. And I'll pass it over to Jamay.
Yeah, so my advice would be bold, take chances. The possibilities really are endless. And, your career, you are likely to hear no more than yes, but don't let that stop you. You have to keep pursuing your goals and your dreams. So keep moving forward is what I would tell my young self. Keep moving. Jerry?
Yeah, I would say definitely be open to new opportunities, and don't limit yourself based on what your friends are doing. I'm so thankful I took the opportunity to get outside of my box and travel across the country to go to college. And so I would say if you're outside the Northwest, you've never been to the Northwest, be open to doing something different. Nothing says that you have to stay for forever, but you'd be surprised when you go out to get outside of your box, what opportunities and doors will open up for you. And then I would also say, ask questions, ask questions so that you can gain an understanding of what the culture is like. In the next slide, we'll give everyone an opportunity to look at some of the resource contacts. So I would definitely say, for us, reach out to the AARG. point of contact if you have questions about the culture at BPA, but also the culture about the Northwest. All of us are willing to support you and to provide information so that you can make the most informed decision for yourself to see if this is an opportunity that you would like to take advantage of.
All right, thank you, Liz, Martine, Jerry, and Jemay. To our audience, now that you know more about BPA and when and where to look for upcoming opportunities, here's a list of resources to keep in mind if you're considering applying for an internship or job at BPA. For general HR questions, please contact HR Help. Any specific questions that you have in regards to a job opportunity announcement should be directed to the HR specialist point of contact listed in that JOA. Also, during the announcement period, hiring managers cannot answer questions from applicants. If you have general questions about outreach or would like to have BPA present at your school, please email the African American Resource Group, the Ambassadors Program, or Diversity and Inclusion Office. So the emails are up there on the slide. And as Jerry mentioned, if you have any questions about working at BPA, the culture at the agency, or, just general questions about the Pacific Northwest culture and lifestyle, feel free to email the AARG or the African American Resource Group. And so I think that pretty much concludes our presentation for today. Just some closing remarks. This event would not have been possible without our coordination efforts with the Education and Outreach Office under the White House Initiative. And we send a very special thank you to Elise for working with us.
Thanks, Elisa and team. I appreciate your time today. And thank you for the presentation and all of the remarks and insights. I started at Department of Education through the Pathways Internship Program. So I am a believer and supporter of programs such as yours, internship programs that you have. At this time, I will open the line up for Q&A. If there are questions from the audience, you can please input them into the chat, or you can utilize the raise your hand function. Once your name is called upon, you can then unmute your mics and enable your cameras if you want to, and ask your question. While questions are still coming through, I have just one question that I would like to ask the panelists or anyone who would like to answer. Is I was wondering how the pandemic and COVID-19, how that kind of affects has it had an effect on the hiring process, and what should applicants expect when applying to your internships and pathways and career opportunities during this time?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'll start out. We've onboarded several new employees during the pandemic. And so we've done a lot of online training. We've learned to use our technology, frankly, that's probably been available to us for a long time, but some folks like myself haven't always learned it. So we have trained folks remotely, and right now we are all working from home for the foreseeable near future, and it's been working out really well. I can tell you that I was nervous about bringing in folks 100% remotely, but with technology and with our communication tools that we have, it's been very effective. Although I will say it'll be great to see folks face to face once we're able to. Other panel members?
Wonderful.
I'll add a little bit. This is Liz, and I was onboarded during our kind of work from home time. I started at the end of April, and I've just been really impressed by how smoothly the process has gone. That was kind of right at the beginning of this transition, and I really felt like I got a full onboarding and have been given the resources that I need to learn and kind of explore opportunities. And I think people knew that this might be a weird time to be onboarding, and so really took extra time to reach out to me and talk one-on-one. and make sure that I was still getting exposure and meeting people and had the opportunity to have those kind of conversations that usually happen a little more organically. So it's been really smooth, and I've been remote this whole time. I think one thing that's been impressive to me is how metrics-based BPA has been about whether people should be working from home and really prioritizing people's health and safety throughout the whole thing.
Wonderful, thank you. So we have one question in the chat. It comes from Jalen Scott Davis, and it says, can the BPA staff discuss more about how energy efficiency is the second largest source of power?
I'm happy to start. Hi, Jalen, thanks for the question. So with Bonneville, we have the Northwest Power Act, and in that act, it requires us to encourage energy efficiency, and we also view energy efficiency as another, frankly, fuel source. So where we can use energy efficiency to meet our load needs, so our power needs and providing power to our customers, we view that as a priority for the agency. Other panel members want to jump in? Or Jalen, feel free to keep asking us questions.
Well, thank you for that. And hi, everybody. So I'm interested in learning how to finance and manage energy infrastructure projects. That's my interest, and that's something I'm interested in doing at the college. So when I asked, can you discuss more about how energy efficiency is the second largest source of power? I kind of wanted to, get into more details about how BPA makes that possible. Like what goes into that process? Like how do you plan for that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jerry.
And I would say, yes, energy efficiency is very important to us. We look at everything that we purchase for the system, we look at it as a resource and an investment. And so currently we have several projects in conjunction with the Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation to refurbish our turbines at the dams to be more efficient. So we consider the efficiency of those as a cost savings and as a energy efficiency savings as well. I don't work in the energy efficiency groups. I can't speak to some of the specifics, but it is something that we consider as part of our core duty and function, is to be as efficient as possible with our resources. So I'm not sure if we're getting at your question specifically, but if that is something that you're interested in at Bonneville, there definitely is several opportunities within the energy efficiency organization and group that look at projects that meet our goals and objectives for the agency. Energy efficiency is something that is it's a big department in our headquarters department, so you would definitely have opportunities there.
Thank you for that. And I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jalen.
Somebody else? Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'll ask my question when you speak.
Oh, sure. I guess since I just did a rotation in energy efficiency, I'll give my understanding of it, but Jemay, feel free to jump in if I'm getting something inaccurately. But I think logistically, one of the ways that we get energy efficiency is we have energy conservation agreements with all of our customer utilities, and then they receive energy efficiency incentives for doing energy efficiency projects within their service territory. So that can be in agriculture, commercial, industrial projects, or residential. And so they go out and implement new projects and then kind of report back to us, and we tally that up. And I kind of saw it as like a bit of a penny earned, or penny saved is a penny earned kind of thing, like because we have those projects that happen through our utility customers, we don't have to go out and acquire new resources. And so that's how we end up quantifying it and counting it as our second largest resource after hydro.
Another project that BPA has partnered with our customers is we've done an on-demand project where we looked at some of the residential loads. BPA doesn't have residential loads, excuse me. We're just transmission. So many of our customers, they're the ones that are in between us and the homeowners, the residential or the commercial users. So we've partnered with several of our customers on-demand resources where we look at peak load periods and how we can shave the peak load through maybe it's turning hot water heaters off during a period of time and what signals we are able to use during that time. So we've had several different projects where we looked at how we can be more efficient with our resources and how we can optimize our biggest resource, which is the Columbia River Power System.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions in queue. I do have a couple of comments that took place that are happening in the chat. So everybody's saying that this is a great presentation and good job to the panel. And we have a couple of a professor who would be interested in hosting a presentation with you all during the spring semester. So again, I cannot thank you enough to BPA team for spending some time out today to share this information with us. I will be sure to send a copy of the presentation to everyone who joined today, and I'll also make sure that it's available on our website. And in my follow-up, I'll also include ways in which you can engage with the speakers and the panelists today and schedule a time for them to speak at your HBCU.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elise.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.